Minister, honoured guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to conference. I particularly extend a warm welcome to the leaders of the Police Federations of Scotland and England and Wales for their assistance in putting in place agreements which will greatly facilitate the smooth operational workings of the G8 summit next week. Some 8,000 police officers, almost 4,000 from Great Britain, are being deployed to ensure the security of our world leaders. Planning for these officers and their welfare was a major logistical challenge and is an example of effective cooperation between the authorities and Federation leaders. I also welcome the new chairman of the Northern Ireland Policing Board, Miss Anne Connolly, as a successor to Brian Ray, who has done a splendid job in reconciling the many policing perspectives of the board. As you can see from the inscription on the backdrop behind me, our conference today has the theme of police, pay and politics. I wish that our agenda could be devoted to purely policing issues, but pay and politics have been used as a football, and so are uppermost in the minds of my Federation colleagues, and they must be addressed. I'm going to focus my remarks on several key areas that warrant urgent attention. Areas that, if addressed properly, will enable the P.F.N.I to deliver the best service they can, and indeed want to, in order to protect the people of Northern Ireland. Minister, I will turn first to security. At Easter, we reached a notable milestone in Northern Ireland. It is now over 15 years since the political parties and the two sovereign governments of Ireland and the United Kingdom signed the Belfast Agreement. The media and political commentators have spoken or written extensively in recent weeks about the progress that has been made, or in some obvious areas failed to be made, since 1998. I too want to give the views of my members on what has been achieved, especially by this police service since April 1998, and perhaps more pertinently, what has not been achieved by others. Northern Ireland is undoubtedly a somewhat safer place for its citizens. We have left the worst excesses of violent days of the past behind us, but we have not progressed as much as we would like to pretend, in particular when we go looking for foreign inward investment and tourists. In many respects, our community relations have not progressed at all. We have a flag, and our society, from its most senior ministers to our most socially and materially deprived, can find common cause. All pretensions to a new and brighter Northern Ireland go out the window as they reveal a mindset unable to move beyond 1690 or 1916. This police service has been transformed since November 2001. The spirit, professionalism and determination of the Royal Ulster Constabulary George Cross was successfully carried through into the police service of Northern Ireland. More than 55% of the P.F.N.I has been recruited since 2001. Our standards of transparency, our openness to accountability, our level of commitment to promote human rights as being at the core of policing is unchallengeable. And we do our job with pride and with courage. I emphasise courage as a characteristic of our officers. We continue to face a consistent threat from the dissident Republican paramilitaries, that sad group of misfits who cannot accept that violence in pursuit of any political objective has no place in any democracy, particularly one that was given the overwhelming support of the people of this island, both north and south, in 1998. Last month, Minister, at the Superintendents Association conference, you were given the figures for terrorist violence. I can now give you a further update. Since January, we have had 16 shooting incidents, and there have now been 33 bomb attacks. Just a couple of weeks ago, 3 officers responding to what turned out to be a hoax Treble 9 call in West Belfast escaped death when they were subjected to a gun and bomb attack. Only good luck and excellent police work have prevented this attack and other more recent pipe bomb attacks being converted into police injuries or fatalities. We have major concerns about the coming together of these disparate groups, with their increasing sophistication and utter disregard for the risk of incidental casualties. Paramilitary beatings and assaults have resulted in serious and, in most cases, permanent injury to civilians. 9 have been shot in what passes for justice amongst the terrorists. Now, despite the level of active threat, the P.F.N.I, through proactive policing, have been able to make significant arrests. Working closely with An Garda Síochána, we have arrested in the year ending 1st of April 157 suspected terrorists and have brought 50 before the courts. Worryingly, however, we are seeing a growing number of young people being arrested on terrorist charges. Young people who would hardly have been old enough to be at school at any time during the Troubles. The proposal by the Home Secretary that conviction for the murder of a police or prison officer should result in a whole life tariff, something we as a federation have called for in the recent past, would be warmly welcomed by my members here in Northern Ireland. And I would also suggest that members of the judiciary should also be included within the scope of this legislation. There is no other place in the United Kingdom where public servants are routinely targeted for murder as custodians of the law. This is a change in the law which could bring some sobering focus to young terrorists. As ever, much of our success has been in what we prevent being carried out by the terrorists and the disruption we bring to their operations. But this creeping resumption of the so-called armed struggle shows signs of increasing in its intensity rather than diminishing, and cannot be left solely for the police to deal with. The response to violence has to come firstly from our politicians in their total and unequivocal condemnation, from the courts in a robust determination to punish severely, and from a police service adequately resourced in numbers, equipment, vehicles and technology. The price of preventing murderous attacks on officers, both on and off duty, is eternal vigilance by them and their families. We must never let our guard drop if we don't want ourselves or a family member to become a victim of a cowardly attack. Truly, a career in policing in Northern Ireland, more than anywhere else in Europe, requires a 24-hour-a-day alertness for self-protection. After 15 years of this severe threat, it should have been consigned to the history books. Minister, as I mentioned earlier, to show how little has changed in 15 years, we also have the continued threat to public order from loyalist paramilitaries and the East Belfast UVF in particular. This protest is a sad reflection of two problems now deeply rooted in our society: the lack of progress in community relations and the economic reality facing young people who do not stay in education or cannot find jobs. Social deprivation is fertile ground for paramilitary organisations. Since July last year, there have been 448 police officers injured as a result of public disorder. And since the flag dispute erupted in December, 136 officers have been injured. As a force, the P.F.N.I seem to have taken comfort in the mistaken belief that no officers have been seriously injured at these regular scenes of public confrontation. It also seems to be a matter of misplaced pride that we have upheld the human rights of loyalists, egged on by elected politicians, many of them occupying senior party positions, to protest on the streets against what was clearly a democratically taken City Hall decision. Now, I'm afraid my federation has a different perspective on what we ought to take pride in. And it's certainly not the pretence that protesters have the right to disrupt the working, social and business life of the rest of our citizens. My colleagues in the front line would also dispute what the P.F.N.I appears to constitute as a serious injury: being struck with iron bars, axes and concrete slabs so that limbs are broken or severely bruised, noses broken because visors are smashed into faces, shoulders dislocated so that an officer may be on sick leave for months, are nothing less than serious injuries. Injuries are also frequently accompanied by post-traumatic stress disorder. That in itself cannot be dismissed as anything less than potentially serious. We are not cannon fodder. Equally to the point, there has been a tactical, operational failure in how we first handled these public order confrontations. Much of our initial difficulty and injuries can be attributed to us slavishly following the Association of Chief Police Officer guidelines on tactics to be deployed in the use of baton rounds during public order confrontations and related disorder. To put it bluntly, we were policing public order in Northern Ireland according to guidelines more appropriate to the rest of the United Kingdom. What is needed to subdue or prevent public confrontation is the early and rapid deployment of AEP baton rounds. The sight of AEPs tends to concentrate the minds of potential rioters. Their early use keeps rioters at sufficient distance to prevent an array of sometimes deadly missiles bombarding officers from every direction. These are obviously operational issues, Minister, but I make no apology for raising them. Only too often, it is fear of adverse comment from our politicians that inhibits senior officers from fulfilling their duty of care to the men and women on the ground. Unless our approach in dealing with public confrontation is understood to be robust from the beginning, then the cost of holding the line during the frequent breakdown of normal politics in Northern Ireland will always be paid by ordinary police officers. Now, we can trace the origins of our current policing difficulties to the conduct of our community leaders and politicians. It is their failure to give leadership to their respective constituencies who then feel free to express themselves through violence directed against the police. And now we have the UVF flags, flaunting their sectarianism and control of East Belfast. These flags are but a comic semblance of the UVF flags of 1913. Their lack of any shred of historic legitimacy only serves to emphasise their oppressive symbolism as the banners of today's UVF terrorists. Their behaviour today dishonours the memory of the UVF who fought so gallantly in the Great War. As for what the law says about the flying of flags, it's adequately covered by conduct likely to lead to a breach of the peace contrary to common law, and therefore they should be removed. The UVF of today is a proscribed organisation engaged in criminality among a reluctant and intimidated host community. Now, every police force claims that a key principle of policing is policing with consent. It is unacceptable to us as police officers, or indeed to the community, that we appear reluctant to enforce the law because of the fear of provoking uncontainable confrontation with the UVF bully boys. Policing with consent is the objective, but an equally important principle is that the rule of law must run through all parts of Northern Ireland, whether it be South Armagh or East Belfast, without fear or favour. Our politicians and this police service need to address the perception in the wider community by clearly demonstrating to them that we are standing up to the UVF as well as dissident Republicans. It is regrettable that the Secretary of State, Theresa Villers, is unable to join us here today as originally planned, but I shall call upon her to exercise her power to re-specify the UVF at the earliest opportunity, as we have done at previous conferences. Minister, enforcing law and order throughout Northern Ireland would be enormously eased with the immediate recruitment of at least another 1,000 police officers. Given that 1,200 or so can potentially leave over the next 2 years, such a measure would not even restore us to our current strength. The Federation welcomes the recent long overdue announcement by the Chief Constable to kick-start recruitment, but 1,000 is the bare minimum requirement. Our target should be a force well in excess of the 7,500 recommended by P.F.N.I. It has been nothing more than a case of looking at our political and security situation over the past decade through rose-tinted spectacles. This has left the police service with insufficient resources to eliminate the threat from dissident Republicans and the loyalist paramilitaries. And what kind of P.S.N.I are recruits likely to join? As things stand, the terms and conditions for all officers, never mind new recruits, have already changed for the worse. Police officers have had their pay frozen for the last 2 years, and contributions to their pensions are shortly to increase up to 14.5% or 12%, depending on which scheme they belong to. What's more, we will contribute to our pensions longer by having to serve more years before becoming eligible to retire with smaller pensions. In short, Minister, we will work longer, pay more and get less. In England and Wales, the recommended starting pay of a recruit has been reduced from £23,000 to £19,000. The government and other politicians' argument is that there is no difficulty attracting recruits, so it's a case of market forces determining the starting pay. Funny we never hear any mention of market forces determining the pay of members of Parliament and MLAs, or any talk of pension sacrifice from our elected representatives. Yet there's no shortage of people clamouring to get elected. Indeed, if the current recommendations on MPs' pay are accepted, they will award themselves another pay rise of up to £20,000 a year. In the case of the Police Service of Northern Ireland, the demands of the job must be taken into consideration when determining police remuneration. These include the absence of many employment rights, such as the right to take industrial action, the very real danger of being targeted for murder both on and off duty, the need to attract recruits who may become alienated from their family and community, a fact which happens only too often here in Northern Ireland, the very real possibility of being injured or even killed because of a willingness to place yourself in harm's way to protect the public, the massive disruption to social and family life because of the exigencies of duty, the requirement of officers to conceal their occupation from their young children, their neighbours, banks, hospitals, and indeed to any stranger in case of deliberate or inadvertent disclosure to the terrorists, the possibility of being intimidated out of your home because of imminent assassination by terrorists, and if intimidated from your home, the likelihood of being saddled with inescapable negative equity. Why, you may ask? Because the Police Service of Northern Ireland and the Department of Justice seem content to be bogged down in bureaucracy rather than come up with a solution that would solve the problem of those officers who find themselves in negative equity due to circumstances entirely beyond their control. Minister, it's not lost on our officers that whenever it comes to funding community representatives and ex-prisoners, money can be found at the drop of a hat. Just last month, over £5 million was given to ex-prisoners groups. Surely, if £5 million can be found to assist groups of lawbreakers, there can be no difficulty in finding a mere tenth of that to relieve police officers who uphold the law from the crippling burden of negative equity. We find it deplorable that after nearly 5 years, some police officers still find themselves in this straitened financial position through inexcusable intransigence by the relevant authorities. It is the responsibility of the Police Service of Northern Ireland and the Department of Justice to implement a fully funded scheme which addresses the negative equity shortfall. Perhaps it's just a question of priorities that this Federation cannot grasp. Minister, having called for negotiations with us on the future of police pay, I do hope you're open-minded about the outcome, because I want to assure you that we certainly are. So much so, I place you on formal notice that we believe there is an arguable case to increase pay for all P.S.N.I officers as recognition of their commitment to the job in face of such a terrorist threat that shows no sign of going away. Minister, as this Federation looks ahead to the summer, it is without much optimism. One positive event has been the Cardiff talks, for which the P.S.N.I deserves credit for its initiative to find ways of lessening community tensions. Like everyone else, we are hopeful that Cardiff does lead to a better understanding of policing among the participants, But signing up to a joint statement is one thing. Seeing effective community leadership on the ground when possible conflict arises over the coming months will be quite another. I welcome these talks as offering the possibility of a less violent summer, but only if it is achieved without compromise to the operational integrity of the Police Service of Northern Ireland. Secondly, we have the imminent challenge of the G8 Summit. This Federation has welcomed the news that the Summit was coming here to Northern Ireland to showcase our country to the world. We will be committing enormous resources to ensure that the event is an international and domestic triumph. At the same time, we are most aware that that is not everyone's wish. We will be doing our professional best along with our GB and Garda Síochána colleagues to ensure that those with malevolent intent are frustrated. A further policing challenge comes when halfway through the summer we are honoured with hosting the 2013 World Police and Fire Games for the first time in Belfast. This event usually attracts 25,000 visitors, including 10,000 competitors from around 70 countries. It is the third largest sporting fixture in the world after the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games. Now, despite the negative publicity earlier in the year regarding security, I am hopeful, as we all should be, for another opportunity to highlight Northern Ireland so that they will take away a very positive image about Belfast, about this province and about its people. Now, woven through all of this is the parading season. This year we will police over 4,000 parades, the vast majority of them without upset or the slightest controversy. But each year there is always the belligerent few, whether members of the loyal orders, their followers or residents groups, easily wound up by dissident Republicans who are determined to give or take offence. Now, the police service will do its job, but we would be greatly assisted if elected representatives especially understood that they cannot choose which laws they will obey and that the decisions of the Parades Commission are the law. The next time we have violent public order confrontation, I will invite our elected representatives, both nationalist and unionist, to visit police officers in hospital and ask themselves a question: what could I have done as a political leader to prevent this? Every year we have 300 or 400 officers injured because of political and community failure. Several officers each year have their careers brought to an abrupt end through injury in duty medical discharge. Is it really too much to ask our executive and the policing board that they demonstrate how far they have come in leaving the politics out of policing, by standing firm with a diverse police service that represents the whole of Northern Ireland's community? And it is, of course, against this background, Minister, that the Department of Justice has asked this Federation to justify why the police should not be subject to a pay review body such as has been foisted on England and Wales. By contrast, the Scottish Government has promised its police service that it will never introduce either the Windsor reports, which seriously undermine the serving conditions of police officers, or a pay review body where there will be no free collective bargaining on negotiation for police pay and conditions. A single body in London, uninformed by experience and unencumbered by local accountability, will come up with take it or leave it decisions for police officers. To say we are dismayed, Minister, is the mildest and most polite way that I can put this. Now, what made matters worse was the initial stance of your department that we already had our chance to be consulted on the proposal to replace the Police Negotiating Board with a pay review body. It took considerable pressure from this Federation to get acceptance that we were indeed entitled to a formal consultation process. But we will struggle to make the deadline that you have set for us. Let me be clear that in all our work, the Federation attempts to be flexible and to meet the Department's requirements whenever we can. But in this instance, events are colluding against us. The volume of work occasioned by this very conference, the G8 Summit next week, the involvement of Federation officials with ongoing PNB business, the problems which are inevitably thrown up by the parading season, and then the build-up to the World Police and Fire Games are all in danger of swamping the capacity of my colleagues to put together a carefully reasoned response to meet your deadline of the 19th of July. Now, I've tried to take comfort from your assurance that you have no predetermined outcome in mind as to what the result of this consultation would be. However, an over-hasty deadline of the 19th of July strongly suggests a mindset to railroad us into a pay review body, potentially as a bolt-on to some national arrangement based in London. Adequate time is essential if we are faced with the most fundamental change to the statutory arrangements which determine police pay and conditions for the past 35 years. If devolution means anything, then it is the power of local ministers to customise their decisions to suit local circumstances. The Scottish Government has not hesitated in regarding its police service as deserving of better treatment than Windsor and the Home Secretary prescribed for England and Wales. How much more obvious then can it be that policing in Northern Ireland deserves the highest regard of this executive? Our terms of pay and conditions should reflect the physical, social and emotional demands made on our officers and their families by the toughest policing environment in the United Kingdom, if not Western Europe. Now, Minister, if you detect cynicism in this address on behalf of my Federation, then I cannot disabuse you of that. Despite the significant challenges I've outlined today, I know that we share a common goal. We hope that the path ahead for Northern Ireland, for our communities, our economy and policing is a path to peace and constructive politics. In the past 12 years, the Police Service of Northern Ireland has made enormous strides in policing Northern Ireland. We have grabbed with both hands the opportunity of the new beginning offered in the P.F.N.I report. Indeed, we have long outgrown that report, such has been the pace of change. But that transformation has not been matched by our politicians and by community leaders. In a country best known for sectarian division and violence, a la carte political support for the police can no longer be an option. The failure of the Policing Board to be more emphatic in their support during the flags dispute was very disheartening. The verbal ambiguity of certain ministers and political leaders was appalling. The inability of Sinn Féin to accept that the police had the legal and justifiable right to arrest Sean Kelly betrayed a partisan approach. And now the failure of both the SDLP and Sinn Féin to permit the extension of the National Crime Agency remit to Northern Ireland shows that they would prefer the P.S.N.I was, as one senior P.S.N.I recently put it, the poor cousins of UK policing. Now, this Federation says what the Superintendents Association said last month, what the business fraternity has been saying for some time, and what is being said by communities throughout Northern Ireland. In the same way that the P.S.N.I can boast about 15 years of progress, isn't it time our politicians could do the same? Minister, I have shared with you what our future looks like. As ever, we are grateful that you've taken the time to be here today and to listen to the issues which I have raised on behalf of my members. And we appreciate that your job was never one that was going to be easy. But it is time that your colleagues in the Executive brought us a better future, one that we were proud to share with them. We in the Police Service of Northern Ireland have done our bit, and now it's time for our elected politicians to do theirs. Thank you.